Good afternoon, everyone. It is Sunday. I was getting ready to say January. Good afternoon, everyone. It is Sunday, June the 28th. It's not January the 28th. No, it is June the 28th, 2020. It is currently 3:40 p.m. Central Time, and I'm coming to you live from Victory Baptist Church. Thank you again for tuning in. And, well, thanks for tuning in for what is going to be probably a very controversial episode of the Theology Central podcast. The goal here is not to create controversy for controversy's sake, but it is to really look deeper into something and to ask some very important questions and to hopefully spark a conversation, try to get people thinking. And I think it's important when we look at all the things happening in our world right now, understand that there were some basic foundational building blocks that are being removed, that are being, in a sense, like all the statues that are being torn down. Some of these fundamental building blocks, these foundational stones, have been turned over, knocked down, and removed. And once that happens, well, then society is going to go through a major upheaval and a major change. For a very long time, there was a certain, you could almost say, Christian-influenced worldview, a Christian influence upon society. Now, that doesn't mean society always handled everything from a Christian perspective, but there was an influence there. There was at least some idea that human life had some kind of sanctity. There was some kind of intrinsic value, intrinsic worth to human life. And I just did a podcast episode just a few minutes ago where now only 39% of Americans in a recent poll said that they believe human life is sacred. Well, once you start going in that direction, you're going to get a major change in society. Another major kind of building block was this idea of the nuclear family, right? The nuclear family. In fact, let me read a definition for you. I've got to unlock my iPad. The nuclear family. A nuclear family, elementary family, is a family group consisting of two parents and their children, one or more. So a nuclear family, elementary family, was a family group consisting of two parents and their children, one or more. It is in contrast to a single parent family or the larger extended family. And a family with more than two parents. All right. So nuclear families typically center on a married couple. All right. The nuclear family may have any number of children. So this idea of the nuclear family, you have a man, you have a woman, they get married, they have children. And then as that family unit, what was argued for a very long time is that within that family unit, you build a level of stability, right? You have the ability, hopefully, as a family unit, you have some form of economic stability, emotional stability. You have some kind of economic security. You have emotional security. You have a situation where you can feel safe. You have the ability possibly to be able to achieve, and you have a foundation to stand on. And once that nuclear family unit breaks down, the argument was, then this will have a negative consequence upon society. It will increase poverty. It will increase, without a father present, this can increase the likelihood that the children may get themselves in trouble. And if you break down that family unit, there was all of this discussion of it could hurt education, it could hurt economically, emotionally, hurt, growth as an individual, just all kinds of possible negative ramifications. And over time, there's been almost an argument against that. That, hey, the nuclear family is no better than any other family. Families come in all kinds of different shapes and forms. Not one form is better than another form. Doesn't matter if Heather has two mommies or if Joey has two dads. It doesn't matter. Family is whatever you want it to be. It can be a group of people. It can be anything. And we should celebrate all families, and we shouldn't say that one is the best and the others are somehow defective or there's a negative impact on these other family unit and these other family groups. So there was kind of a move against kind of the nuclear family. There was almost like a pushback against the concept. In fact, if we do this, if we go to Google right now, I'm just going to do this. Go to Google, just type in the nuclear family, right? The first thing that pops up, the nuclear family, I just did a search under Google, the nuclear family. The first thing that pops up is this. The nuclear family was a mistake. That's the very first thing. I type in the nuclear family, and the very first thing that shows up on Google is that the nuclear family was a mistake, right? If I open this comes from The Atlantic. The nuclear family was a mistake. The family structure we've held up as the cultural idea for the past half century has been a catastrophe for many. It's time to figure out better ways to live together. So this article goes on to argue that the whole thing was a mistake. And at some point, we should probably come back and maybe do a whole episode on this. But I mean, that's a big statement. The family structure we've held up as the cultural ideal for the past half century, which is the nuclear family, has been a catastrophe for many. It's time to figure out better ways to live together. So let me put this under notes. I'm going to save this because we may want to come back. I just think it's interesting. That's the very first thing that shows up. All right. And then you get the Wikipedia article on nuclear family. And then right under that, there's a list of videos. And then look what you have. The nuclear family wasn't built to last. How the nuclear family broke down. Underneath that, the nuclear family is the worst family. I mean, wow. I mean, you get into this. I mean, it just seems like all the search hits, all the search results are things that are very negative towards the nuclear family. There's almost a pushback against it. So we've reached a point in society where human life has no sanctity, no intrinsic value. No, there's no unconditional worth in it. All right. That's because we emphasize that we are evolved animals. We're just evolved animals. There's no God. We're all just material. It's just a materialistic world. And, life has no intrinsic value. All right. So we're seeing that kind of foundational stone kicked out. And now we're seeing a major nuclear family. We don't need it. We don't need a nuclear family. We don't need that. Now, let's be fair. There are many nuclear families where a lot of bad things happened. All right. I was raised in a nuclear family. It was an absolute and total disaster. It was horrific. All right. It was horrific. So, but just because some nuclear families are horrific and are horrible and are sorely, very bad and broken beyond all comprehension, does that mean the concept of a nuclear family is inherently bad and is broken? Or is there something to this idea of a nuclear family? Keep that in mind. Now, what I want to do is I want to take this idea of kind of this attack against a nuclear family, and we're going to transition to a discussion about Black Lives Matter. Now, you've got to listen to what I'm about to say. I am going to make a very big distinction between the statement Black Lives Matter versus the organization Black Lives Matter. You have the statement, the slogan, the sentiment, hey, Black Lives Matter. And you know what I would say to that? Amen. Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter because life is valuable. Life is intrinsically sacred. It has an unconditional worth, an intrinsic value to it. Black lives do matter. Amen. I 1000% agree with you. And listen to me. If something happens in the news regarding a Black person who is murdered, killed, some horrible thing happens, some injustice, something horrible happens, and someone wants to say, wait, that is wrong. Black lives matter. I'm not going to go jump in there and go, wait, all lives matter. No. Let's talk about Black Lives Matter. That Black life mattered because all Black lives matter. And I have no problem with the idea, with the words, with the sentiment, with the slogan. Black lives matter. And they matter no matter Black Lives Matter. A black life matters. If that black life matters, if it's killed by a white person, if that black life is lost at the hands of a white person, if that black life is lost at the hands of another person who is black, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who takes a black life. That black life has value. It's worth something. It doesn't become more valuable because it's killed by a person of a different race. It doesn't matter. The life has value. It matters. Black life matters. It does. And I got no problem saying that. I got no problem standing by that sentiment and that slogan. And I don't know why people get all worried. No, all lives matter. Well, yes, all lives matter. But in this particular context, we're talking about some injustice, some wrong that happened to a black person. So let's just agree black lives matter. And we can talk about other lives in a different context. I got no issue with that. Right? And again, I want to make it very clear. Black lives matter. That black life matters in the womb. Black lives matter outside the womb. Black lives matter if it matters no matter what is happening. Good times, bad times. It doesn't matter if a black life has been killed by any. It doesn't matter what race takes a black life. That black life matters. It has value. It is worth something. And I believe all life does matter. Absolutely. But if something is happening, if we feel there's an injustice, if there's something happening to black lives, I got no problem stepping up and going, hey, you know what we need to talk about today? We need to talk about black lives mattering. And they do matter, right? And I have no problem with that. Now, here's the thing. You have the slogan, you have the sentiment, you have the idea, Black Lives Matter. At the same time, you have an organization called Black Lives Matter. All right. In fact, you can go to the organization's website. I have it right here. blacklivesmatter.com. blacklivesmatter.com. Everyone should go to the website. And when you go to the website, you should look at two sections. You should look at the section on what we believe. And in fact, let me look at the names of them. You should go to, let me pull up the sections. You should go to About, and you should go to About. Yeah, when you click on About Black Lives Matter, what we believe, 6 years strong, and then it has our co-founders. All right, so you should go under all of that, but you should definitely go under what we believe. You should definitely go under what we believe, because I think there's something very, very interesting in that section. So go to blacklivesmatter.com, go to the About section, and then click on what we believe. You should definitely look at it and look at it for yourself. And I want to make sure we draw the distinction between the slogan, between the sentiment. Black Lives Matter. Amen. I agree with you. Black Lives Matter. I will chant it with you. I will hold up signs. Black Lives Matter. I got no problem with that. But let's make sure we draw a distinction between that slogan and the organization. You may agree with the idea that Black Lives Matter, but do you agree with the organization? And what does the organization have to say about family? Now, you would think what they would say is that the family unit is very important and we need to sustain and build strong families, right? I mean, when it comes to the black community, there's been much discussion about the breakdown of black families and black families with no father, single mothers raising children, and the absence of fathers in many black families. There's been lots of discussion about that. Does that matter? Black Lives Matter. If those children, their lives matter, could their lives be better if they were in a stable nuclear family? Or does that not matter? Well, according to some now, the nuclear family is actually a bad idea, and we need to break it down. We need to find a new way to live together. Is that a common sentiment? What does that have to do with Black Lives Matter? Well, I'm going to play for you a clip that I heard on the radio. Right? I want you to listen to this. It's only a couple of minutes long. Listen carefully. When I heard this, I had to go do my own research because I'm like, wait, is that true? Are they accurate? Well, I've got my iPad here. We will verify if this is true. But I thought it was interesting when I heard this yesterday. I'm like, wait, I need to really look into this. So make sure we're clear. We're talking about the nuclear family, right? That building block is kind of being tipped over, removed, right? And is the nuclear family a good thing or is it a bad thing? Society today is pushing back, saying, nope, it's a bad thing. We need to find a new way. Now, at the same time, so I've established that. Then I transition to making sure you understand there's a distinction between the phrase Black Lives Matter and the organization Black Lives Matter. I'm all for the sentiment and the phrase. I got no problem chanting it with you. I got no problem. But the organization, do I agree with the organization? Should you agree with the organization? Does the organization, there have been some churches standing with the Black Lives Matter organization. Not the slogan, the organization. Is the organization an organization that biblical Christianity could be supportive of and in agreement with? Do you actually know what it means? See, so much of the argument is over. Someone says Black Lives Matter and someone argues all lives matter or blue lives matter. And it becomes like everyone's going to argue like that. And it's just like, okay, can we just agree Black Lives Matter? Why do we need to argue about that? I'm in complete agreement with that. Now, what we do need to do, though, is what is associated with that phrase is an organization. Now we need to see, is that what is the organization promoting? What is it teaching? What is it calling for? Now that's a different subject. That's a different thing. And we have every right, they have a website, to look at what they believe and then analyze it and question it. Well, there is one thing that they believe that directly relates to the family. See how this is all coming together now? Right? Now the pieces of the puzzle are coming together. What does Black Lives Matter have to say in regards to the family? Let's listen to a clip that I heard on the radio, and I want you to listen to it carefully. Here we go.
To expound on what I'm talking about when it comes to Black Lives Matter, the organization, here's from their website. On their About page, they've got all these things that they want to do. But down towards the bottom, here's what they say. This is from the Black Lives Matter website, and we have all these Hollywood elites donating to this organization. This is sick. Here's what they say. We disrupt the Western prescribed nuclear family structure requirement by supporting each other as extended families and, quote, villages that collectively care for one another, especially our children, to the degree that mothers, parents, and children are comfortable. Notice they don't say dads there, because we don't need dads, right? Let me read that again. This is from the Black Lives Matter website. We disrupt. Our goal is to disrupt the Western prescribed nuclear family. You know what that is? That's not Western prescribed. That's biblically prescribed. The one man, one woman marriage, family, raising of children for life, that's what they're talking about. Their job is to disrupt it. Arguably one of the most important institutions in American history, the family that's built America. Black Lives Matter, their goal is to disrupt it. And I'll translate that. Their goal is to destroy it. And so next time you see some famous person that you like on some television show say that, "Oh, I'm gonna send $100,000 to Black Lives Matter," you better remember what they're for. Exposing Washington American Family Radio. Check out our website, AF.
There you have it. Now, when I heard that, I was like, whoa. That That's something we need to talk about, right? That's going deeper here. Now, he didn't do a very good job of explaining how to get to the website. So I want you to look at it for yourself. So I don't know if you're driving your car right now. I don't know if you're at work. I don't know where you are, but if you can, stop what you're doing and at whatever device you're listening to me on, use that device to go to the Black Lives Matter website, all right? Go to blacklivesmatter.com, blacklivesmatter.com, blacklivesmatter.com. Now, you'll see a drop-down menu. Go to the About section. Once you click on the About section, it's going to bring up another little drop-down menu, and it's going to say What We Believe. You'll need to go under What We Believe, because I was a little confused when I was first looking, going, wait a minute, I don't find this statement. So I was going to turn on the microphone to say, hey, Christian Radio made a claim that Black Lives Matter said this, but I kept looking and I finally came across it. And I'm like, oh, here it is. So I'm going to read it to you because I want you to hear it for yourself, all right? Getting podcast notifications on my iPad. Here we go. Now, he read it to you. I'm going to read it to you again. This is on the blacklivesmatter.com website. All right? This is what they believe. Here we go. Number one, or not number one, but because this isn't a list of things. So there's a number of things I want to read here, but I'm just going to focus on this one. So we won't call it number one. We'll just say, here is the statement. All right, here we go. We disrupt the Western prescribed nuclear family structure requirement. So one of the things they believe, one of their goals, one of the things they want to achieve as Black Lives Matter, as the organization, they want to disrupt the Western prescribed nuclear family structure requirement. That's what they want to. They want to disrupt it. They want to. And he said, on the Christian Radio, they said that he translated that to destroy it. I don't know if that's what they mean, but they want to disrupt it. Now, I will argue, hasn't there been enough disruption of the nuclear family idea already, especially within the Black community? Fatherless homes, single mothers trying to raise their children, and this leads to poverty and a problem with education, leads to a lot of issues. Are they not part of the problem? But they want to disrupt that unit. Now, again, we're drawing a distinction between the slogan, Black Lives Matter. I've already said I support the slogan because I believe life matters, and I believe all Black lives matter. And I believe their lives matter no matter what happened. I don't care if they're killed by a white police officer or if it's someone of the same race. Their lives matter. I don't care if it's in the womb, outside the womb. I don't care if it's a Monday, a Tuesday, a Friday. I don't care if it's in Chicago. I don't care if it's here in Texas. Their lives matter. Because I believe all life has intrinsic value and unconditional worth. Right? I think that's very important. But now we're drawing a distinction between the slogan and the organization. And the organization, in their stated belief, is they want to disrupt the nuclear family. Is that good or is that bad? Now, the whole statement reads, we disrupt the Western prescribed nuclear family structure requirement by supporting each other as extended families and villages that collectively care for one another, especially our children, to the degree that mothers, parents, and children are comfortable. Now, I don't know what that even looks like. How do you create a village? Isn't that what Hillary Clinton famously said? It takes a village to raise a child. Like, what does this village look like? If you go back to the statement before this one, all right, so we disrupt the Western prescribed nuclear family structure requirement by supporting each other as extended families and villages that collectively care for one another, especially our children, to the degree that mothers, parents, and children are comfortable. If you go back to the statement before this, they state this: we make our spaces family friendly and enable parents to fully participate with their children. We dismantle the patriarchal practice that require mothers to work double shifts so that they can mother in private even as they participate in public justice work. I don't understand what patriarchal practice requires mothers to work double shifts. Isn't the reason the mother is working double shifts is because the father is absent? Isn't that the reason she's working double shifts? My wife has basically rarely worked outside of the home, only in very few circumstances, especially after we had children that pretty much stopped her working outside of the home permanently. Then you don't say, well, you were rich. No, we weren't. Okay. I was an airman with no stripes. Okay. One stripe. Okay. No, we didn't have a lot of money. So I like, so they want to break down the patriarchal system. They want to break down the nuclear family unit. If you go on with some of the other things they want to do, here, there's so many things here. We are guided by the fact that all Black lives matter, regardless of actual or perceived sexual identity, gender expression. All right. So obviously gender doesn't exist. Now, here's the thing. Their Black Lives Matter. So they believe race. I'm assuming they believe race exists. But when it comes to gender, I guess your gender identity is whatever you identify as. So and I'm not trying to say this to be sarcastic, but can I identify as Black? And does that make me Black? So they don't believe in any perceived, so when it comes to sexual identity and gender identity, you can be whatever you want to be. All right. We are self-reflexive and do the work required to dismantle cisgender privilege and uplift Black trans folk, especially Black trans women who continue to be disproportionately impacted by trans antagonistic violence. All right. We foster a queer affirming network. When we gather, we do so with the intention of freeing ourselves from the tight grip of heteronormative thinking, or rather the belief that all in the world are heterosexual unless he or they disclose otherwise. I guess, okay, wow. Yeah. So, but the big thing there is they disrupt the Western prescribed nuclear family. So here's what you should do. If you're going to speak out against Black Lives Matter, make sure you clearly identify what you're speaking out against. You're not speaking out against the sentiment Black Lives Matter, because especially if you're a Christian, lives matter. Lives have unconditional intrinsic worth and value because all human beings are created in the image of God. It doesn't matter their gender, their race, all of that is irrelevant. All right. We believe all life has intrinsic value, but the organization promotes ideas that are clearly contrary to a biblical understanding of family, of sexuality. All right. Again, we'll go back to Genesis chapter 1. Genesis chapter 1, starting in verse 24. Therefore shall a man leave his father and his mother, shall cleave and shall cleave unto his wife, and they shall be one flesh. Therefore shall a man leave his father and mother, shall cleave unto his wife, and they shall be one flesh. Once they form that bond, they are one flesh. What God has joined together, let no man put asunder. They are supposed to remain that way for life. And they are to do so and provide for the husband is to provide for his family. If he doesn't do that, then that's a very negative thing in the Bible. He is to provide for them. There should be stability. There should be security. There should be an environment that is free to learn, to grow, to struggle, to fall. There should be a sense of trust and privacy, that what happens in the home is kept amongst the family unit, a place of trust, a place of growth, a place of love, a place of support. Now, sadly, because of a fallen world, that doesn't always work out that way. Supposed to work that way. Now, it doesn't mean just because you have a nuclear family that all the kids are going to grow up and be successful and they can end up destroying their own lives. But what you do is create the environment, hopefully, where they can succeed from. But the Black Lives Matter wants to disrupt that family unit. I just think that that's interesting because there's been so much discussion, so many articles written about the things happening in the Black community and fatherless families and a lot. And here's the organization that want to disrupt that. Now, they obviously want to disrupt it because they believe there's good that comes from disrupting it. Now, you can have the societal argument all day. Is the nuclear family good, or is the nuclear family bad? You can have a societal argument all day. You can argue it. You can pull out statistics. You argue all day. From a Christian, biblical, theological perspective, the family unit was ordained by God. It's one of the building blocks. Life is sacred. I mean, all of this happens in Genesis. In the beginning, God created. He created. There is a creator, okay? All things have to find its purpose and meaning in God. God created. He established right and wrong. So morality must find itself in a transcendent God. Morality comes not from inside of us, but comes from outside of us. We look to God. There's morality. So we have God. We have a creator. We're not just accidents. There is a creator. Morality flows from him. He created all of us in his image. Therefore, life has an intrinsic value. And he established the family unit where the man leaves his father and mother, cleaves to his wife, and they become one flesh. And there is a family unit. These are like the building blocks. But society is knocking all of those down. Now, people may get upset about a statue of a Confederate general or a Confederate leader being pulled down. There are other things being pulled down. You could argue, the very building blocks, the very foundational stones of an organized and sustainable society. And if those get pulled down, society will implode in and on itself. Our house will be built on a sinking sand, and we're going to sink. You maybe want to be more concerned with that than a Confederate statue. These are the things that are of even greater significance. So there you have it. I wanted to at least bring this to everyone's attention. You may not think it's interesting. You may not think you care, but you should go read all of their statements about what they believe. Please know, and make sure if you speak out against Black Lives Matter, make it clear to people, no, I'm speaking out against the organization. The sentiment that Black Lives Matter, I am in full agreement with because their life does matter. Make sure you draw that distinction between the organization and the statement, because it's creating a lot of controversy, because I think if you speak out against Black Lives Matter, then it comes across that you're a racist and you don't care about Black lives. No, I agree with Black Lives Matter. I don't agree with the organization. Two very different things. All right. Email me your thoughts about all of this to newsif@yahoo.com, newsif@yahoo.com. That's newsif@yahoo.com, newsif@yahoo.com. All right. Everyone have a great day. I'll probably be back on the air here shortly. God bless.